submission, and I want to ask, ma, that when you grant approval for both for MDs to recruit or to approve their manpower needs, do you issue any certificate or letter document to that effect, ma'am? That's my first question. You may want to answer, ma'am, so that I can go further.
They defend their manpower needs.
Yes.
We give them their establishment positions in letter form. And when we grant waivers also, we give letters.
So thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, sir. I will request that the head of service furnish this committee with all the approvals, waivers, and manpower assessment needs granted to all the MDAs, please. I want you to furnish, in addition, let's say from the year she mentioned there,
2015, that's what.
So, ma'am, please furnish that. Secondly, ma'am,
the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation does not recruit. We are not a recruiting
who recruits for you, ma'am?
Agency. The Federal Civil Service Commission recruits for the Office of
For your office?
Yes.
Lovely.
And for other ministries.
Okay. So, ma'am, are you saying your office do not recruit workers from level 1 to 6?
Okay. The recruitment of junior staff is what the Civil Service Commission has delegated the Office of the Head of Service to do. It's their responsibility, but they have delegated that responsibility to the Office of the Head of Service.
In that case, ma'am, please, we want you to furnish us with the details, the records of that category of workers that you recruited during the period under consideration. Okay? Okay. For any approval you grant, ma'am, for waiver, that head of service also get 10% of such allocation. Thank you.
I want to categorically state that the Office of the Head of Service renders service to MDs, and we do not request for any kind of percentage, either 10% or 1%. We do not. In fact, the first time I had that rumor, I called the director and the permanent secretary in charge of that, in charge of waivers, and I told them categorically that I must not hear that kind of thing anymore. If they were doing it before, which I really, really don't think that has happened.
And lastly, Mr. Chairman, my last question. Ma'am, what is the basis of determining seniority in civil service? Is it based on the first date of appointment or qualification?
The seniority, the PSR actually explains how seniority is determined. The first thing you look at is the promotion date. If the people have been in service, then you look at the date of promotion. That is the first thing.
No, what of the date of employment, the date of resumption?
It is when the date of promotion is exactly the same. That is when you now go back to date of first appointment. But what you look at to determine promotion first is the date of promotion. So it is only when the date of, because promotions are, sometimes some people get promotion at the same time. So if the date of promotion, last promotion is the same thing, then you can now go back and look at antecedents. But what you look at first and foremost is the date of last promotion.
Okay. Thank you.
What law does the Act establishing Civil Service Commission give them that mandate to further concede their responsibility to the office of head of service. I think that I need to be informed. Thank you. Or the committee need to be informed. Thank you.
Of all recruitment into the federal service. However, they are authorized to delegate. Anybody that has authority can delegate. And in their guidelines for appointment, promotion, and discipline, it is stated there that that responsibility of the commission has been delegated not only to the office of the head of service, but to every ministry. It's not only office of the head of service that recruits from grade level 1 to 6. It is all ministries that have that delegated authority from the Civil Service Commission, sir. The Permanent Secretary Special Duties Office that goes round, they will collect the waiver, and we've done it in such a way that it is not the office that issues the waiver that goes round to monitor, just so that we are sure of what is happening. And also because of our resources, unfortunately, we cannot go to every establishment. So what we do is to take establishments from each of the geopolitical zones and now go and monitor and ensure that they have not exceeded our waivers. And one thing, there are also, what we have done, we also wrote to the Accountant General of the Federation that they should ensure that the IPPIS department should not enroll any staff newly employed by any organization if they don't have 3 approvals. 1 from the Office of the Head of Service, 2nd from the Budget Office, and 3rd from the Federal Character Commission. So if any institution goes to them to enroll without any of these 3, then they should not be enrolled. And they should also follow, now that we have in our letters for waiver, we have actually put the cadres and requisites there. They must follow the cadre. So if we have granted waiver to employ, for example, 10 doctors and 2 accounts officers, and the institution turns it around, they cannot enroll more than what waiver we have given to them. The first, what we have seen is that MDAs employ more than the waiver we have given. And when that is done, it's difficult for them to enroll those people on the IPPIS platform. So that is one of the mechanisms. And then we also ensure that when they come the next year for manpower planning, we tell them that you exceeded the number you are supposed to employ, and so this year you will not get any waiver.
Okay, ma'am. Just a follow-up.
Yes, several agencies have violated the waivers, several. And we've also discovered some IPPIS staff in some MDs that are also perpetrating some evil in the system. And what we do consistently is that once we discover that there's some foul play, especially when it comes to the IPPIS enrollment, we inform ICPC immediately. We do a letter, inform ICPC, and then we start disciplinary action against them. We do not just rely on ICPC, we now commence disciplinary action against those officers. And I can say that, you know, we've had several officers that we have disciplined just because of their role in this.
This is how investigative hearing should be conducted. very serene environment. Thank you.
And I think, but that's what some of the reports, is stated in their reports that they got waiver and another waiver not to advertise for employment. So I think that is to me.
I think that comes from the Federal Character Commission. It doesn't.
With ministries, agencies to see their manpower requirements. University system is very critical to our own survival. And most of the universities, particularly Lagos, I can make mention of so many of them, if I have not been given the opportunity to recruit for over almost 7 years, 10 years. And we want university education to be strived. Are you one? Vested. If you are not vested with the responsibility of granting approval to university to employ, don't respond. We'll target this question to the agency that is responsible. If you are, why have you not been able to put a technical team in place to study the dichotomy in terms of manpower that exists in our universities? That is one. Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
In any case, since we will have another interaction
But
with you.
I want to give some background, sir. I think sometimes in 2021, I had a meeting with the Executive Secretary of Nigerian University Commission, NUC, on this issue of recruitment in our tertiary institutions. And what the concern we had was at that time was that when we give universities waivers, the concentration is that they employ more non-academic staff than academic staff. And that was giving us a lot of concern. And at that meeting, we also agreed that for any institution that wants waiver, they must first of all go to NUC and apply to NUC. NUC will look at their request, ensure that those percentages are correct, and then that request will come to the Office of the Head of Service through the Ministry of Education. And that was agreed on at that meeting. Because it is NUC that supervises the universities directly. And they agreed with me that that is becoming a big problem.
I think these interactions.
Payroll software. And the software is actually housed in the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. The Office of the Head of Service has a role in the IPPIS because we are responsible for the human resource aspect of the IPPIS. So what happens is, let me go back in history. Ideally, the two should have gone hand in hand. A payroll system should go with the human resource system. But unfortunately, the Office of the Accountant General went faster than the Office of the Head of Service. And so they were able to payroll staff without the addition of the human resource aspect of the IPPIS. So what the Office of the Head of Service is doing now is just playing catch-up with IPPIS. And what we're doing is to ensure that everybody that is on the payroll, the qualification, all the human resource information of that person is also on that system. So the letter of employment is on, we now have put the letter of employment, all the person's qualifications, the NYSC, the promotion letters. Right now we have all of that for core civil servants. and we verify those things. What I mean by core civil servants is the people working in ministries. That's what we call core civil servants. So the Office of the Head of Service has been able to verify all those people in the core ministries as at January of this year. And we've also moved outside of that to start the verification of officers in the non-core agencies and parastatals. We've done the first round of going to the parastatals to ensure that we capture everybody, because we have to capture all public servants, their picture, their fingers, and then their qualifications and letter of employment. So we've done that for the core civil servants, and now we are going out to the parastatals to ensure that the payroll now has everybody's particulars, not just your name and your agency, but it will now carry your particulars. And while we are doing the verification, we discovered that there are a lot of people that were not supposed to be on the payroll, but were on the payroll, and they couldn't come out for verification. And so all those people have been kicked out from the payroll. And that's why we're now going to the parastatals and agencies of government to ensure that everybody that is on the payroll, we have all their documents. However, the Office of the Accountant General is still the IPPIS department in the Office of the Accountant General is still, for now, they are the ones that enroll people onto the IPPIS platform for now. By the time we finish the verification completely, I am sure that that system will change going forward.
That is why we are helping you to make.
Let me guys that we have not any extensive submission other than our own the nominal rule for the budget office, because the invitation letter that we received referred to recruitments that we had undertaken. So we responded to say that the budget office does not recruit its own staff. Now, the Federal Civil Service Commission recruits, and the head of service deploys staff to the budget office. But of course, that's with the exception of the level 1 to 6 personnel. And I think even over the period covered, the exception of a few drivers that we recruited, the budget office has not conducted any recruitment in that cadre of staff. Furthermore, because the nature of our own job, we are supposed to play a lead role in prudent management of the resources in government. So as of 2016, when I became Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, the office had 500 people and an authorized establishment of 520. And we determined that we didn't need 500 people. So over the last 7 years, we've come down from 500 to now about 317, thereabouts. So we have not only have we not recruited, we have significantly reduced our numbers. Refer to the exemplary in managing the personnel costs of government, which as of 2015 total personnel cost was about 1.8 trillion naira. Today it's over 5 trillion naira. And so as much as we desire to depopulate the burgeoning numbers of unemployed people in the country, the reality is that it is not actually, and the government isn't really a direct job creator. The role of government is to create the enabling environment for the private sector to create, the jobs. The total number of people in the employment of the federal government nationwide, including all of the security services, the military, and all of that, is under 1.5 million. And there are people who still argue that government is overstaffed. I don't agree in aggregate, because my view is that we are overstaffed in some areas and significantly short-staffed in other areas, like policing and that things. So our own drive has been to shed the weight in all routine administrative jobs where we appear to be overstaffed. And that's why we have led by example in shedding our own numbers to be able to create the capacity to grow numbers in the areas where we need them without necessarily increasing the overall cost to government. But nominally, personnel costs are today about 2.5 times where they were by 2015. Meanwhile, our revenues have not grown by a similar multiple. So it is not sustainable for us to continue to add numbers. It is for that reason that a few years ago, working collaboratively with the Office of the Head of Service, we developed the guidelines for recruitment into the public service, which was presented to government, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation issued a circular to that effect. And the whole objective was not to create administrative bottlenecks in the recruitment process, but to basically restrain the unbridled controlled growth in numbers of government. And with every sense of modesty, I'd say here that, but for that initiative that between ourselves and the Office of Head of Service, we, 6 years ago, by now, maybe instead of talking about 5 trillion for personnel costs, we'll probably be talking 10 trillion. So, but of course, many of the agencies who feel constrained from the bad behavior of the past will keep complaining about bureaucratic bottlenecks. So, but we need to do a balance between that.
Thank you. I think, Director,
our practice in the past, this, and that's what has led to the progressive tightening. The process that the head of service described is the current practice. The process that insists that IPPIS does not enroll without those 3 sets of approvals. But the truth is that that is recent. That's only from last year. But it took us, several years of pushing on, I think, for us to finally agree. So before that process happened, it was not unusual. We at the budget office, we keep the nominal rolls of all agencies that we prepare a personnel budget for, so that at any point in time we're called upon to defend the personnel budget for any agency. As the budget is submitted by us, we can provide the documentation on which it was based. But what we found over time was that from one year to the next, when you're in the payroll of an agency, you will see additional numbers on the payroll. Meanwhile, over that period, no approvals were given. And in the past, we had written to draw attention to those, anomalies. But we do not have the mandate to expunge them from the payroll. Secondly, once they found their way on the payroll, beyond drawing attention to the anomaly, we become duty-bound to make budgetary provision for them, because otherwise they're not going to get paid. And what will happen is you have a crisis in the system, and usually they will run the National Assembly and petition and say they are not being paid. The budget office has underprovided for personnel costs, and they're not getting paid. But I think that we are in a good place now with these controls. And I'm also hoping, as the head of service indicated, that the IPPIS actually the two core modules, the human resources module and the payroll module. The truth is that the core of the application is the HRM, the human resources module. The payroll module is that's almost like a front end of the system. But in this case, the way IPPIS was implemented, we implemented the front end before the back end, and that created the gap that has been exploited over over the years. When they finish this, what the head of service is doing now, it will be a lot more difficult to perpetrate any manipulations in the system. And I think at that point, it will be germane to separate the enrollment from payrolling. That point.
Thank you. I think
the first day I appeared here, I was not given the opportunity to lay down, to say certain things, to lay a background, so that you understand how the IPPIS work. I am saying so because certain things have been said here, and those information have been carried like that. I, Mr. Imadeko, I'm a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. I grew through the rank. I was employed in year 2000 as a principal accountant, and I've grown through the rank to become a director. I was not in the headquarters. I just came to the headquarters in February this year. I was posted to IPPIS. Having said that, it is important we should know what the IPPIS means. IPPIS is Integrated Personnel and Payroll. I want to emphasize that. So personnel come before payroll. You cannot payroll without the personnel. I am saying this because certain things that were said here, that the IPPIS is as if IPPIS is an omnibus person. No, it's just a department in the Accountant General's office. And so nothing is done there without the collaboration of these people that have spoken here. I am very happy that we listened to all these people today. And if you heard what they said, you will understand that we don't operate without their guidance. When I came in, the former Accountant General told me that, look, these requirements must be followed. And what are they? That before we go ahead to capture anybody, they must provide the waiver from the head of service. They must waiver. That is what the head of service explained here before. They must provide the budget provision. Let me emphasize here again that if head of service approves 200 and the budget office says we can only provide money for 180, we don't capture 200. That was done before I came on board. And that's what has given us problem. And that's part of the reason for this committee. But when I came in, the former General acting told me that, look, henceforth, don't do it without this. So even if the head of service approves 200 and budget office says 180 is what we are providing for, that's what we will capture. Yes, and we see they must provide, they must give us the document to that effect. That's what we followed as of now, as he explained from last year. That's what I've been following. But before then, I cannot say what was happening because I was not there. But like we said,
you can say what was happening.
Government is
Sir,
a continuum.
Director.
What I'm saying, I cannot defend what was happening. I don't know what happened.
Why?
Listen to Chairman.
Okay.
Why can't you defend what was happening? Then you have no business doing anything.
We asked that we submit the soft copy because of the headings, the way they are. We have been trying to upload since we left here. We've not finished that upload. It's just because of that makes us to put it inside. That's why I told you that we cannot get everything. We have been uploading the payroll. The payroll itself.
That is why I said, see, sir,
into flash drive.
Director, you are giving us the one in the flash drive, which is not completed. It is not up to date.
It's still downloading part of it. It's one that will download.
So put it in flash A, B, C, D. Pack the flash. 1, 2. Chief, you can equally summarize, in addition to putting them in the flash drive, you can summarize the agencies all. We see in one paper, you can give us the summary of what you are paying. In each agency, summarize and tell us this agency have this personal requirement, isn't it? See, you are not taking note.
No,
Give us a summary of personal requirement of each agency that is under integrated payment, IPPIS, and the attendant implication of the